Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, U.S. retail and factory data weaken on tariff concerns. The latest reports bolster Fed rate cut bets. Norway urges increased trade and investments between the Philippines and the European Free Trade Area. We speak with Norwegian Ambassador to the Philippines, Christian Halas Lista. And caving into the craving at the annual IFEX Philippines, the premier platform advancing the food and beverage industry. IFEX Philippines Project Director Rowan Mendoza joins us live. U.S. President Donald Trump winds up his tour of the Gulf states with a visit in Abu Dhabi and the capital of the United Arab Emirates. Both leaders of the U.S. and the UAE expressed commitment to achieve peace and stability in the region. UAE already committed in March a 10-year investment framework in the U.S. with a price tag of $1.4 trillion. According to Reuters, both countries finalized a technology framework agreement that could give Abu Dhabi expanded access to advanced AI chips from the U.S.
The relationship will only get bigger and better. Your relationship and mine can't get better, so I can't say it's going to get better because it's at the highest level it can be. But our countries will work together. We've become a very hot country. We were not such a hot country 6 months ago. And now I think we're the hottest country, if you want to know the truth.
Meanwhile, Trump said the U.S. is close to securing a nuclear deal with Iran. He said Tehran had sort of agreed to the terms of the new pact. Trump withdrew the U.S. from the Iran nuclear deal that the Obama administration negotiated in 2015. One area of contention, the level of uranium enrichment, which Iranian officials have called a red line. While Iran is willing to reduce enrichment, the U.S. wants to stop it. Meanwhile, a Qatar wealth fund is planning to invest an additional $500 billion over the next decade. The Qatar Investment Authority will target areas such as AI, data centers, and healthcare, while aligning with Trump's agenda to reindustrialize the U.S. The president said he leaves the Middle East this Friday en route to quote-unquote almost destination unknown. U.S. retail sales slightly rose last month, while factory gate prices unexpectedly declined. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed consumer spending inched up by 0.1% in April, matching economists' expectations, while the producer price index dropped by a seasonally adjusted 0.5% last month. Analysts predicted an increase of 1/3%. The PPI's decline was attributed to a fall in services prices by 0.7%. The largest pullback since 2009. Consumers are starting to feel the pinch with Trump's tariffs, which took effect in April. But the levy's full impact will take months to show as businesses assess whether to raise prices or not. And Japan's economy contracts in the first quarter of 2025, underscoring the impact of Trump's tariffs. Japan's economy shrank by 0.7% on an annualized basis, steeper than 0.2% anticipated by economists. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, the GDP contracted by 0.2%. The Bank of Japan had recently warned that the country's economy would moderate going forward due to the levies. Japan is currently under trade negotiations with the U.S. The UK economy beats expectations to grow at its fastest pace in a year. Data from the Office of the National Statistics showed UK's GDP expanded by 0.7% in the quarter through March. Economists forecast a rise of 0.6%. Still, experts warn the UK could still face a slowdown due to Trump's tariffs. The US and UK recently reached a trade deal, rolling back some of the tariffs imposed on London. And while U.S. markets were mixed Thursday, investors are optimistic trade tensions will ease. The Dow rose by 0.6%, S&P 500 climbed by 0.4%, and the Nasdaq fell by nearly 0.2%. The benchmark 10-year Treasury yields have ticked down after rising for 5 sessions, settling at 4.45%. As for gold prices, they've rebounded to $3,220 per troy ounce. U.S. futures are pointed to a slight decline when the markets open later tonight Manila time. The Dow in after-hours trading flat. Both the S&P and the Nasdaq are down by 0.1%. And Asian markets are looking mixed at the get-go this Friday morning as Japan releases its first quarter GDP data. Australia's ASX 200 is up by over 0.1%, and South Korea's Kospi rises by 0.33%. Japan's Nikkei 225 slides by over 0.1%. Let's take a quick check on the Philippine market, see how they're going. PSCI opens this Friday lower by 0.1% at 6,459. The stock market yesterday, Thursday, fell for the second straight session by 1.3%. As for the Philippine peso, it opens today stronger at 55.67 to the dollar. The peso snapped its two-day decline to close yesterday at 55.746 against the greenback. Norway celebrates Constitution Day tomorrow, May 17, the Scandinavian country's national day. Last night, the embassy celebrated with partners and advocates. Norway joins Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland in marking the 7th year of the European Free Trade Area's free trade agreement with the Philippines. With us now for more is Christian Halas Lister, the Norwegian ambassador to the Philippines. Good to see you, Ambassador Lister. Welcome to the program and happy Constitution Day.
Thank you so much, and I'm very happy to be here with you this morning.
And day before Constitution Day, because it's May 17th, and it's a big celebration that you have in Norway that you want the world to know about. Why is it significant?
We celebrate the world's second oldest written constitution still in force. It's our constitution from the 17th of May, 1814. It's something we're very proud of, and every year we have big celebrations in Norway. We have children's parades, we have marching bands, and people in the streets. So it's a big deal. It's something that we are really proud of, and we had an event last night, and then on Saturday, on the day itself, so we're going to celebrate with the Norwegian community in Manila as well.
How big is the community here?
Well, it depends a little bit, but I'm guessing that on Saturday we might have a couple of hundred people. We'll have a marching band. We will walk around. It's a bit hotter here than back in Norway.
It is,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, but we'll still kind of do the traditional things.
Right,
Where
sounds like...
we put the children in focus.
Sounds like a lot of fun, and it is in the spirit of freedoms. As we're talking about freedoms, and by way of that, the right to suffrage, you've seen firsthand our just concluded midterm elections at the start of this week. What did you make of it? What are your initial observations?
Well, first of all, I would say congratulations to the Filipino people, because basically what touches me is that everywhere in the Philippines, people go out of their way to cast their ballot, to vote. I think I saw a number, about 80% of the eligible voters actually came to vote, and that's something to celebrate. So even if your candidate didn't win, just being there, casting your vote, that's an important thing, and that's an important principle for any democracy.
It is a high voter turnout, north of 81%, which says a lot. I know that the EU had also been involved in the way of being observers. There's an observers mission that came over here in the Philippines, and Norway is part of that. So how did it go for them, seeing it from the outside looking in?
Well, of course, I can't comment as such on the monitoring team, but I'm happy that we had 5 Norwegian observers as part of the observation mission, and it's important. It's important to invite people in to observe. We also do it in Norway. We have upcoming elections in September, where we also invite observers. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it's important for any process. And I know that there were also observers from other countries participating, and it's important to because every democracy can always kind of do something better the next time around, and I think it's always important to learn. But the most important thing, going back to the fact that people came, they voted, and that is a celebration of democracy. I think that's the most important thing.
Apart from the elections, you're also involved in peace in this country. Norway is a third-party facilitator in the peace negotiations that dates all the way back to 2001. But you're also involved in the Bangsamoro process. And as you know, we do have a plebiscite that was scheduled towards October. What is the role of Norway in that?
Well, first of all, we have been involved in the Philippines for a long time. And not only in the Philippines, this is important for Norway. We try to work with partners to promote peace, to promote reconciliations. And of course, in the BARM, we have been part of the independent decommissioning body for a long time. We're the vice chair. We also have 3 Norwegians on the ground working for this independent decommissioning body. And that's important because that's a very, very important part of the peace agreement. So we're trying to support the Philippines moving forward in implementing the peace agreement. And right now, I would say that with everything going on in the world, with all the challenges we have, with Russia's attack on the Ukraine and other wars and struggles going on, I think the Bangsamoro is actually something positive. There's actually a peace process that is moving forward. Yes, it's taken time, but still it's moving forward in a positive way. And that's, again, something to celebrate and something to showcase for the world. And that's why we're here, to support this process moving forward.
The European Free Trade Area is something, I would presume, something to celebrate about with all what's going on, the global policy uncertainty. But how has that moved on between the Philippines and the EFTA, now celebrating its 7th year? Have we made lost ground in those 7 years and pursue closer free trade and investments between the Philippines and the European Union?
Absolutely. And for countries like Norway and the Philippines, we're open. We have open economies, and for us and the Philippines, it's very important to have free flow of goods, trade. It's an important thing, and of course there are challenging times now, but for the free trade agreements, it's really something to celebrate. We see that trade is increasing. We reduce barriers. And it's been working. So yes, we still have a potential to utilize the free trade agreement even more, but we've seen a positive development over the 7 years.
Which areas then are we going to pursue in the next maybe 7 years, given the global uncertainty?
I would say that partnerships like we have through a free trade agreement and other partnerships will be very, very important. And I think also for countries like the Philippines and Norway, we really have to stand up for multilateralism and to have systems that work globally for the whole world to create certainty and not to create more uncertainty. So I think that will be very, very important.
Got about a minute. I'm just curious, what ways have you discovered salmon to be used in the local dish? Because we know salmon's a miso, but you've discovered a couple of others.
Absolutely, and we're actually getting more and more Norwegian salmon into the Philippines, and it can really be used in a lot of different dishes. I've tried salmon in Bicol Express, and it's really good. It's fantastic, and it's so healthy, right? So if you can kind of replace other stuff with salmon, it's healthy, it's good for you. I also tried it in the traditional fish soup, and it's amazing. So you can use it in typical Filipino dishes, and it tastes great.
Great. Well, we'll try it at home. Thank you so much. And happy Constitution Day. Have a great celebration
tomorrow. Thank you
tomorrow.
so much for having
Appreciate
me.
It, Ambassador.
Thank you.
And that was Christian Halasvister, Norwegian ambassador to the Philippines. And you're watching Money Talks. Coming right up. Economists see the Philippine inflation rate to remain within the 2 to 4% target until 2027. and a celebration of food, beverage, and ingredients at this trade show happening next week. Keep it here on One News. Back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Philippine inflation expected to remain within the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas 2 to 4% target until 2027. That's according to economists surveyed by the Bangko Sentral. The mean inflation forecasts are expected to settle at 3.1% this year, 3.3% in 2026, and 3.4% in 2027. The Bangko Sentral says the survey respondents see upside risks from the effect of geopolitical tensions, changes in global trade policies, and adverse weather conditions. Meanwhile, it said downside risks are still seen from lower rice prices. The Bangko Sentral also said it expects inflation below 3% until the fourth quarter, citing steady declines in domestic food and global oil prices. However, it expects inflation to rise gradually and peak in the second quarter of 2026. The Philippine Stock Exchange is increasing its stake in the Philippine Dealing System Holdings Corporation after closing agreements with two banks. The market operator finalized accession agreements for the PDS shares held by two member banks of the Bankers Association of the Philippines. The two banks sold a total of 17,500 PDS shares to the stock exchange, equivalent to over 0.2% stake. Following the transaction, the PSE will beneficially own nearly 92% of PDS, subject to post-closing conditions. Personal remittances from overseas Filipino workers rose by 2.6% to over $3.1 billion in March, the slowest growth in 9 months. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas attributed the growth to sustained demand for Filipino labor abroad. Data showed the growth was mainly driven by higher flows from the U.S., Singapore, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. The U.S. remains the top source of cash remittances, accounting for over 40% of the total. However, economists warn that a new U.S. tax proposal could threaten this. Under the proposed measure, the U.S. government may impose a 5% excise tax on immigrant remittances. Analysts said this could discourage OFWs from using formal banking channels and shrinking the overall volume of funds sent home. PLDT's attributable net income fell by over 8% to 9 billion pesos for the first quarter. The telco giant says this was because of higher expenses outpacing modest revenue growth. Meanwhile, its total revenues rose by nearly 2% to 55 billion pesos for the January to March period from 54 billion a year earlier. PLDT Chairman and CEO Manuel V. Pangilinan says they are navigating a softer market environment but their fundamentals are intact. He also said they will remain focused on recovery and growth across all segments. Moving forward, Pangilinan said he is optimistic for the future.
It's slightly concerning. The overall macro environment is softening in relation, say, to last year. Then we're in for some rather tough challenges.
And IFEX Philippines 2025 opens next week, showcasing the country's biggest food trade expo. Through the joint effort with Trade and Industry Department's attached agency, the Center for International Trade Expositions and Missions, IFEX Philippines 2025 aims to showcase Philippine food products to the rest of the world. With us now is Project Director Rowena Mendoza, joining us live here. Thank you so much. Magandang umaga po, Rowena. Mukhang handang-handa na ba sila sa IFEX Philippines?
Magandang umaga po, Miss Cathy Yang. And handang-handa na tayo for venturing into another staging of IFEX Philippines 2025.
And it's not only about food, no? Including
Yes, ma'am.
beverages as well.
Yes, actually, IFEX Philippines, or the International Food Exhibitions, now featuring Sustainability Solutions Exchange, is actually the country's, we can call the country's biggest B2B or business-to-business and export-oriented trade show for food, beverage, and ingredients.
Naiisip ko dyan yung
Yes.
mga micro, small, and medium-sized
Correct.
enterprises, ano, na meron silang pagkakataon
Yes.
para maging ibang bansa. Tama ba?
Tama po.
Anong ginagawa natin ngayon, considering that we have a big issue about tariffs and the uncertainty in the global order?
Well, actually, the Trump's economic strategy, which is imposing tariffs, especially for the ASEAN countries, it's really something that's very challenging for the Philippine exporters. But we see it also an opportunity because among the ASEAN countries, we are among the lowest tariffs, and that already gives us an opportunity with against our competing countries like ASEAN, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia. So some of the U.S. importers are looking at also the Philippines
So
as
how
an
can we win this
alternative.
game? Ano po yung nakikita ninyo, Rowena, na parang, is it the raw materials that we put into the ingredients that we export? For instance, earlier this week,
Yes.
nakausap ko ang Axilum, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
coconut,
correct.
as they
Yes.
have as the star product, na dahil ang laki ng demand, kulang ang supply.
Correct. Yeah, because of that, our Department of Agriculture is really our key agency that has to work into the supply chain. And while we are working, SITEM is working on promoting the products, the finished products to the world, we would like also that the Department of Agriculture helps in the supply chain or the supply and working on the demand of that products. So mahirap lang po na we continue working on our goal to promote the Philippine products. But there is also this opportunity na dapat din we work on the beginning of the supply chain,
True.
which is the supply.
Which is IFEX nga, kaya nandyan
Yes.
kayo, no? Very interestingly din, sino mga pinopromote natin? Sino ba nangingibabaw sa taong ito?
We have this Premium 7. That is the products that the Philippines is known for, and where we have the best of the capacity and the abundancy of the supply. Mentioned earlier the coconut, we have the mango, we have the banana, we have the pineapple, and of course for the seafood like tuna. We also consider coffee and cacao still up, and we're still working. There we have some supply problems, but eventually matulungan natin sila.
Parang doon pa lang sa mga prutas, fruit shake na
Yes.
naiisip ko. And the ambassador
halo-halo.
earlier, and the ambassador earlier was talking about salmon, hindi sa miso, pero salmon sa Bicol Express.
Yes.
Nakakatuwa. I mean,
There's
for an imported product to actually be used in many different ways. So I know that the event's happening next week. If somebody's dropping by, can they taste test for all they
Yes.
want? I mean, what's the draw here for the event?
Well, if you come to IFEX Philippines, mabubusog kayo. And you will already discover a lot of new products from the roster of our 700 exhibitors. And we're looking at coming into the show around, well, we have 10,000 visitors, but foreign visitors, makikita po natin dito that we are also extending the support, especially for our exhibitors or exporters. The influx of buyers from US, Japan, Korea, Middle East, Americas, and Europe is also one of those countries that is also sourcing from the Philippines. And we're bringing them here, and so that our exhibitors, parang they do not need to go out of the country. Just here in IFEX Philippines, they will be able to reach out to their target markets.
That's a good sign. The trade is
Yes.
very much alive. Well, at least here in the Philippines.
Yes.
Salamat and good luck
Salamat
on the
po.
event next week sa
So,
IFEX.
see you also
So,
in
huwag
IFEX.
kumain bago bumisita para
Yes.
busog. Rowena Mendoza, the project director of IFEX Philippines, joining us here. We'll be back after this short break. Keep it here on Money Talks on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Midterm voter turnout hits a record high at 81.65% according to Comelec. The figure a touch lower than the recorded 82.5% turnout at the 2022 presidential elections. Well, with us now for more is Athena Ash Charan Presto, the Filipino sociologist researching politics, gender, and social policy at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Ash, so good to see you. I know you've been so busy just talking to the demographic out there that really made the difference, the youth, the millennials, and the Gen Z. What have they shown in the ethnographic studies that you've done, and what will they show in 2028?
Thanks, Kathy, and thanks for having me. I mean, the youth vote has been such an interest in this election, specifically because of their number. But I think one of the first things I would like to highlight is that the youth vote is not homogeneous. So obviously, young people come from different regions. They speak different languages. They also have different sexual orientations, gender identities, gender expressions. They come from different socioeconomic classes. They have different educational attainment and so on and so forth. So, and I hope that you also get to talk more about the heterogeneity of youth votes in these elections.
It says a lot about what the survey firms out there should do for the 2028
Yeah.
presidential elections. What would be your advice then?
My advice to survey firms would just be, I guess, to think more about the different creative ways young people now engage in elections. And I say this drawing from my own research and my own work. So young people are very creative. we have seen an increase in the platforms that they engage in, specifically online platforms. And even online platforms have different cultures. So on Facebook, they use a different language. The posts, for example, tend to be longer. On Twitter, for example, or X, the exchange is a bit spicier. And young people actually have a term for that. They call it bardagulan.
Yes,
So
they do.
yung bardagulan, right, refers to the more humorous, yet also very spicy, a more aggressive kind of political discourse and conversations
Great.
among the youth. And if you want to capture that, then you also have to capture the breadth of political engagement of young people, even the newer ones online.
That's true. I guess we'll have more bargadulan as we go along
Bardagulan.
in the
Yeah.
next 3 years. But thank you so much. We'll be keeping in touch with your ethnographic studies. Really interesting, Ash. Thank you. Ash Presto from UP Diliman. And that is it for Money Talks. What a week it's been with the election coverage and then Money Talks. Catch us again on Monday, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great, restful weekend ahead.